morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me in my living room once again to record some wonderful stories, incredible things that I have gotten to see lately. I'm Jenna Taylor, and this is You Need a Miracle. As you know, or most people know, I actually work at a homeless shelter. I was called there in 2003 out of the clear blue left field and had serious doubts about all that. But my goodness, here I am, been the director for 16 years, and an unbelievable adventure I never dreamed I'd get to see or participate in. And so as you know, at Bay City Mission, we're a homeless shelter, and we feed, clothe, and house the homeless and the poor. But there's so much more that we do that I'd like to talk about. And I want to mention to you that actually in the Bible, when the Lord talks about the poor and how to treat the poor, it's mentioned 197 times. I think he's real serious about this, how we treat them and how we take care of the little ones. And so I know that a lot of people ask me this question: why is it that you see so many more miracles and signs and wonders and healings that we don't see in the church? You just see so many, and we've seen so many. It's a weekly basis, and just blessed to see that the homeless, God heals them, he redirects them, he saves them out of their pit, he changes their life. One thing I do know, they're desperate. They are desperate. They have no one and nowhere to go. And they sure don't have an insurance card in their back pocket to whip out when they need a surgery. And so what they have to lean on then is the Lord. And so we count it as a privilege to get to love on them and help them and take care of their needs and really help them. There's that scripture in Psalms about how he lifts them out of the dust heap and sets them on a throne. And that is our goal. That is our mantra, that we lift them out for the Lord, lift them out of that dust heap and set them in a high place. And I mean, I've seen guests that were homeless on the street, came to eat, found out about the program, got clean and sober, went to college, got a 4-year degree, and are doing great. That's being lifted out of the dust heap and put and set on a throne. And I am counted a privilege and an honor to get to be a part of that. You know, there's a question a lot of people ask, and that's why do we see so many miracles at Bay City Mission that we don't necessarily see in the church? And I have some theories about that. One of which, of course, is that they're desperate, and B, there is nowhere else to turn. And so in whatever area it is that they need help, we're going to help them in that area. And I'll give you some examples. We all know we feed. Now last year we fed over 50,000 meals to the little ones. And that's a big pleasure of ours to do. And in addition to that, we clothe. So all the donations that come, in-kind donations that come in to what we call the store, where we have a free store for them to shop in. And if it's clothing or belts or shoes or makeup or undies or, those kinds of things, we have it all for them to go shopping. And so that's important. But we also house the homeless. So we have here at this facility, at our facility, we have about 350 beds. And that may sound like a lot, but in the big picture, we're considered a small shelter. In LA, they have 5,000 beds. And so that just blows my mind, but God sent me here, and I'm glad he sent me here. And so these are ways that we can help. I'll tell you a story about some of the things that we get to do. Also, I get to preach the gospel, and many volunteers come in and preach the gospel to the homeless. And it's such a pleasure, and it's really the most exciting part of my week. I do it twice a week, and I get to just love on this group and really preach and also tell funny jokes, and we laugh a lot, and then we lay hands on and heal. And so that's exciting as well. What you may not know is that we actually have addiction recovery program for men that can come in and live with us for a year. It takes a long time to get over an addiction, especially meth. And so the physical addiction, the addiction that the brain has now, the addiction the psyche has, the addiction of the whole body. Every cell of the body is addicted to the drug, the alcohol, whatever it is, the marijuana. And when they come in, they are beaten up, and they are pretty beat up. And I'll just tell you a story. Yesterday, I preached in chapel, and I actually did share. Occasionally I'll stop and just share with the homeless everything, all the programs we have to offer, because they're new on the street, or they're not even from this town. And so yesterday I shared the many programs that we do have. And actually one of the gentlemen, such a handsome young man, just so put together, it appeared, but he's actually addicted to alcohol, and he did not know. He came to eat. He didn't know anything about the programs. His name is William, and he joined our program. And I'm so glad. I'm so very glad that God's reached down and scooped him up and out of the dust heap like that. It's an amazing story. I'll tell you a story about someone that came to eat one time. His name was Jonathan. I did not know him. I just knew that when I was praying over our service, that I was walking up and down the aisle, that I noticed a gentleman, young man, and he was completely bandaged in his eyes. And I thought, my goodness, I wonder what happened. He had the stick, and his girlfriend was with him, and he was not a happy camper. I'm telling you, the bitterness coming off of him was palpable. And so after I preached, I said, if you need healing, come up and I'll pray for you. Well, his girlfriend dragged him up to the front and said, he's been shot in the eyes with a shotgun. He's blind. They've told him there's no hope. And so he's actually about to go sit out 9 months in jail. And I knew about Faith City, and I wanted to come and see if you would pray for him. I said, I'd love to pray for him. And so we did. We gathered around, we laid hands on him and on his eyes specifically, and began to pray for all those, the BBs to come out. You know, when you hit shotgun is, beads everywhere, that those would all come out of his eye, work their way out of his eyes, and that he would recover his side, and that God would heal him. Just really, God would heal him. And then he left, and I didn't see him for 9 months. But 9 months to the day later, he came to me. He said, do you remember me? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't. And he was the color of paste, and he'd been in jail so long. And at any rate, his girlfriend was with him, and he said, I was shot in the eyes with the shotgun. And I went, oh my goodness, how are you doing? And he said, I wanted to come back and tell you the story. He said, I had to go to jail, and I was blind, and I'm 19 years old, and I was beside myself, and I was so distraught, and I was so depressed, and it was hopeless. I just wanted to die. And I was really kind of freaking out. And they finally just sent me to the pavilion, which is sort of a psych ward here in Amarillo, and just to walk me through, you've got to come to the grips that you are never going to see again, and still you can have a functional life. Oh, he was so depressed. And about 2 weeks later, he's still in jail. And about 2 weeks later, he woke up one morning and he realized he could see shadows. And as the day progressed, the shadows sort of came into focus a bit. And as the day went on, in the evening, he realized that he could see normally. He could see people. He got his eyesight back. Not possible medically. And yet God reached down and healed that little one. And he was a different man when he came back to me. Oh my gosh, wonderful story. And just the joy of the Lord that, he got his eyes back. He got his sight back. I can't imagine anything so amazing as that. And I love it that she thought to bring him to Faith City Mission and had the faith to believe that God was going to heal him there. And he did. I love that story so much. There's something else that happened when I was preaching one day. And I told you this story not long ago, but some may not have heard it. I actually had torn my rotator cuff, and it was so bad. It was in this shoulder, and it was so bad that they said, you have to have surgery. There is no hope for you. And it's totally ripped and so severed. And so I said, God's going to heal me. God's going to heal me. I prayed in faith. I believed. Everybody laid hands on me. I believed. It didn't happen. And finally, months later, my husband said, Jenny, you're going to have to go get the surgery. And I was heartbroken that for whatever reason, and I felt like I had that faith, that unction for faith to believe, but it never happened. And so, of course, what did I do? I got my insurance card out of my purse. See, that's different. And I went and had the surgery. And then, of course, as you know, anybody that's had it, you're in this black contraption that is horrible. And you cannot take it off. And you have to, really guard your arm, and you sleep in it. And oh my gosh, I was ready to pull my hair out. And but one day I was preaching in chapel with my brace on. And afterward, a young man came up. His name is Dane. He's a regular. He's got long blonde hair, big blue eyes, and he's Scandinavian. And at any rate, he said, Mrs. Taylor, you are not going to believe this, but I got a job today. I got a job, and I'm so excited. I start tomorrow. There's just one problem. And I said, well, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. What's the problem? And he said, well, I tore my rotator cuff and I can't work. It's heavy lifting, and I can't, my rotator cuff is torn. And he said, I want you to pray for me so I can be healed. And I said, do you not see the problem here? I don't think I'm your girl. I don't think that I'm going to be able to help you out there, buddy. He said, no, ma'am, you are. You're going to pray for me, and God's going to heal me, and I'm going to go to work tomorrow. And so you need to lay hands on me and pray for me. Okay. So I did. I just laid hands, and I just prayed the scriptures, what God said, that he sent his word to heal Dane and save him from his destruction, and that he would watch over that word to perform it, and that his word never comes back void, but always accomplishes what he sends it to do. And so off he went. Well, the next afternoon, it's 5:30. I was leaving work and coming out of my office, and there was Dane. And he said, well, I'm here to tell you what happened. He said, I got up this morning and I did push-ups to see if it was healed, and it was. And I went to work and I did heavy lifting all day. And I'm here to tell you, it's great. I'm fine. I have a job. Your shoulder doesn't hurt. It's wonderful. He said, I just wanted to come by and let you know and thank you for doing that. And I thought, you know what? I'm not even going to try to develop a theology around that, or how that happened, or why not. But I'm just going to thank God for what he did for Dane, because that was an amazing story. In the Hope for Men program, we've had several people, men, that have come to us, and they are not only addicted, but they're very troubled, because typically what happens in the life of a man or woman, as a child, they suffered a terrible trauma of some sort. And the trauma was so severe, the abuse, the sexual abuse, the beatings that they received. I know of several gentlemen that came to get clean and sober who had unmended broken bones at the hands of their father. And so we're not just trying to get them clean and sober, we're trying to heal that trauma. Because they just found a number at age 10 or 11. They found a beer or marijuana, a joint or cocaine, and they went, oh my gosh, this is my new best friend. And then they end up, of course, being controlled by their new best friend. And that's when they end up on our doorstep. And we put them back together with God's help and his mercy on their lives. And incredible stories that have come out of that. There's one story in particular where a young man came. He had the complexion of pavement, and he came to get clean and sober, and he actually was HIV positive, which wasn't something that we shared, but he did have it. We do accept that here. And he had been HIV positive for 15 years, been on the meds, everything. And so, yes, we said, well, we'll get you in the program. And so he did. He worked a good program. And he graduated the program in a year, and he became a sous chef in the kitchen. And so he was working in the kitchen, and it was good. Life was good. But one day he came to me and he said, Mrs. Taylor, I have a melanoma on my back, and they have biopsied it, and they're going to biopsy it. And but I would ask if you and the staff would pray for me for healing. And I said, certainly, honey. And so after a staff meeting, we gathered around and we laid hands on him and we prayed over that melanoma. And then that was that. He went for his biopsy, and about a week later, I came to work one morning and I walked in the lobby, and the lobby's full of people and they're all crying. And I thought, what is going on? And no one was paying attention to me. I said, what has happened? And finally I had to put my director voice on and go, what is going on? And all of a sudden there was a parting of the waves, you know, the people parted, and there was Ben, and he was sobbing. And I said, Ben, what happened, honey? What happened? And he said, listen to this. And he flipped up in his phone and he punched the buttons to go to voicemail. And he played this voicemail for me. And it said, Ben, this is Dr. Patapathy. And I wanted to give you the results of the biopsy. The biopsy is clear and it's benign. So no worries there. He said, but I also need to tell you that you no longer test positive for HIV. I went, that's not even medically possible. And Ben said, I know. God healed me. God healed me. I'm telling you, his whole life changed. His whole demeanor changed. Not only was he clean and sober, not only did he have a job in the kitchen, but he had a life. He had a future. And that just, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus, for what you do for the little ones. An incredible story. Well, as you know, we also have a program for women who are addicted and need to get clean and sober. And our program is unique in that the women come to us for a year, but they get to bring their children with them also. And at one point, there was a girl that came, her name was Gretchen, and she had a little 4-year-old named Blake. Now, it was apparent very quickly that Gretchen had a tic. And when I say that, you know, I've heard of this type of thing, something like a Tourette's, but it's a tic. And so her particular tic was that she would just, in the middle of class, just hurl out an expletive or a curse word or a long string of curse words. And we'd say, Gretchen, you can't do that here, honey. And she said, well, I'm not talking to you. And I said, you still can't do that, darling. And, but it was a tic. It was that kind of tic. And so I thought, I don't know what we're going to do. She's never going to be able to have a job. She can't, because she had another tic that was in class, and I taught art class at that time. And this particular tic was explosive. And so she would all of a sudden, I'm lecturing or whatever, and all of a sudden she'd go, and I think, oh my gosh, what are we going to do so that this poor girl can have a normal life? And her little 4-year-old would say, Mom, you can't say things like that. Mom, you can't do things like that. But of course, it's a tic, you know? And so at any rate, we have a therapist there at the mission, and everyone goes to see him counseling. There's group pastoral care, and then there's also some care for individuals. And over the course of 9 months, Dr. King, who works with us, actually was able to help Gretchen overcome this disorder and live a normal life. So that by the time it was time at 9 months to go get a job, she actually could get a job without the tics. And not only that, but she was promoted in her job, and her little girl. So here's what's so important to me. Because she came to Faith City Mission, and because we had Dr. King there, he was able to change the course of Gretchen's life, and he was able to change the course of Blake's life. And I thank God every day for that Gretchen got to be returned to a normal person and be set free from what would keep her completely debilitated in the rest of her life. You know, there's another program that we have. It's a prison release program. And so many times the they write from prison. The prisoners write, they've got to go to consider a halfway house. And we qualify for that at Faith City Mission. And so we get letters all the time, but this particular time it was a woman, and she was being released from prison, and her name was Jennifer, and she came to the mission. Now, she was a small woman, but she was meaner than a snake. I am telling you, slits for eyes, mean, growling, just, oh my Lord. I thought, oh, I don't think we're going to keep this one. And so she'd be in class and she would try to tell these vile, horrible, disgusting stories from prison and the things that happened there. And oh Lord. And oh, she hated me. Ooh, she hated me. So if I ever wanted to pray for me, I pray for you. She said, don't you touch me. And I was, oh God, oh Lord, oh, give me grace for this one. And so we, tried to keep her. And she wouldn't do anything we asked. She would be rebellious and do stuff we told her she couldn't do. And oh, it was just crazy. And it was so hard on even the rest of the girls. And, but one day we had a chapel service and we had a guest speaker, Rodney Orsbourne, and he is an amazing fellow. I am telling you, and he's very fiery, loves God with all his heart. And he has seen signs and wonders and miracles like crazy. And he's just a prophet. Well, at any rate, he walks up and down the aisle while he's talking and preaching. And I'm on the front row and he's about midway back. And all of a sudden I hear him stop his sermon and go, "You stand up." And I thought, oh my gosh, who is it? And I turned around and it was our little girl. It was our little lock and load girl. And I thought, this is not going to go well. This is not going to go well. And I thought she's going to come out slinging. Well, first I thought she's not going to stand up. Well, all of a sudden she kind of got a wide-eyed look and stood up. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is up there with the parting of the Red Sea. And he said, step out in the aisle. She did. She stepped out in the aisle and she crossed her arms like, I don't want to believe a word you're going to say to me. And all of a sudden he started prophesying over her future, God's love for her, God's plans for her life, God's plans for her children's life. I mean, it was incredible. It was explosive. And it was so powerful because she's none of those things. And all of a sudden she bent double and she started crying and sobbing and crying. And Rodney took her in his arms and just loved her. He just held her like a papa and loved her. And all the bitterness and all the anger and all the fury and all the disappointments and betrayals in her life melted away in that moment. A therapist couldn't have accomplished that in 4 years. And yet God accomplished it in a nanosecond. She was a different girl. And so, of course, chapel was over. She stayed in chapel and she just sat before the Lord and she changed utterly. It turns out she has wonderful manners and she has a beautiful smile and she's a leader. And she's complete and utter transformation before our very eyes. And she said, you know what, all I've ever wanted, I have my children taken away from me, CPS, and all I wanted was, I want my children back, but my 12-year-old hates me. And she said, all I'd like to do is just to hear him say, Mom, I love you. And I said, then let's pray for that. Okay, Jennifer, let's pray for that. And so we did. We prayed for a miracle, and the kids got supervised visitation there at the mission with the children. And so she was able to visit with them and mend fences and be a changed person. And one day the children were all getting back in the car and she was saying goodbye to them. And the 12-year-old rolled down this window and said, I love you, Mom. She goes, that's all I ever wanted to hear. So God can transform lives like nothing I have ever seen. And I think a lot of it has to do with just that incredible desperation that these ones find themselves in. We have another program. It's called the Work Program. And so there's many people that come, the homeless, and they come for lunch and so forth. They have a job, but they're not in a position or able to actually save up for the driver's license, get a car, get an apartment. These are all things that are just completely out of their reach. And so we let them live with us and everybody has a little chore they do, but they go to work. And I'll give you an example. I was preaching in chapel again one day, and there was a new gentleman. He was young and he was sitting in the back, and he was crying. And so afterward, I went and talked to him. His name was David, and he had a job. He drove for the railroad, but he's living in his van. He's got nothing. He has no food. He has nothing. He has to come and be with us. So we told him about the work program and how we could case manage and help him save up for these things and how to, anyway. At any rate, about 6 weeks later, I'm walking through the dining hall, and he walks up to me and he says, "Mrs. Taylor, guess what?" I said, "What?" He said, "I got my apartment." He said, "I'm all set. I'm leaving in a week." And so I thought, oh my gosh, to see God again, lift someone out of the dust pile and set them in that throne. It's the joy of my life to see that happen. There's another program that I'm very fond of. It's called the Missionite Program. And in that program, there are those that are disabled on the street, either mentally, emotionally, or physically. And they get a disability check, but on the street, it is very dangerous to have a disability check. So someone will come and befriend them, and then they will beat him up, steal the check, or get him to cash the check, and they steal the money. And it's awful. It's dangerous out there for them. And so we have them come into the Missionite Program and be part of our family. And so they have their own dorm, and so they have their place to be and their spot, their bed, and everybody has a chore to do in the family. Everyone has a chore, and there's a lot of chores to be done as far as the feeding, the clothing, the housing, the washing the sheets, and putting them back on the bed for the next night. And so we have that. And there was a gentleman that came, and he has a neurological disorder, and his speech is stilted, and his walk and so forth. And he's disabled. But what's amazing is his love for the homeless. And so he's actually overnight dorm manager. And he checks them in, he sees to their needs, he makes sure they get their scrubs and their shower and everything. And that he's able to do, and just provide for them a safe place to be. And so not only is he part of the family, as a missionary, he's part of the family, but he gets to have a chore in the family, a job, and he has a good job. He has a reason to live because he's over these little ones, though. That's his flock. And I love that. Oh God, you're so sweet. We also have, I love this one too. After I preach on Tuesday, there is a group of women that actually come in. They're Spanish speaking only. They have a Spanish Bible study. They come in afterward and sit with me, and we visit. Some of them know a little English. And I just love being with them. And I'll tell you why, because whatever they ask me to pray for, it gets healed. It's the most amazing thing. They are the easiest people group I've ever seen to get healed. Now, I don't know if that's because they might be Roman Catholics and they're taught from infanthood in miracles, but I don't know. But I have seen knees healed. I've seen lumps disappear in the breast. I've seen the lame walk. I've seen it all. And I love that group too. But anyway, I thank you for letting me tell you more about Bay City and the things that we get to do. So God bless you. Have a great day.
Be sure and get your copy of Jenna Raleigh Taylor's Signs and Wonders 101, 101 Days of Miracles, real-life stories that build your faith. Buy it today on Amazon.com or on signsandwonders101.com.